Hello friends, Joe Lynch here from the Logistics of Logistics, and I am at Manifest, the future of supply chain and logistics, and I just bumped into my old friend Trey Griggs. Please introduce yourself and your company and where you're normally coming from.
Yeah, I'm Trey Griggs. I'm the founder and CEO of Beta Consulting Group, sales and marketing consulting firm in transportation logistics. I'm also the director of operations for the Broker Carrier Summit, based out of St. Louis, Missouri, which is where I normally reside. It just came off the golf course, of course. That's where I had to be here in Vegas.
Yeah, now you also have a podcast. Talk about that. What is the podcast name?
I've got a couple actually. So I have Word on the Street, which is a party podcast every Friday from noon to 1 Central. About 8 of us on there just having a good time talking about transportation, politics, religion, sports, pop culture, having fun playing games. It usually goes off the rails. We have a blast. So that's every Friday from noon to 1 Central. I also do a couple of other things. I have Standing Out, which is a one-on-one podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership. I also do The Road to the Summit, which is a podcast with Kevin Hill that we do every week leading up to the summit, which is going to be April 28th through May 2 this year. And so we talk about speakers and what attendees can expect at the event. We highlight sponsors, we highlight brokers, carriers, whoever's going to be there. So got my hand in a few things there.
I guess so. So first off, let's talk about Beta Consulting Group.
Sure.
What problem are you solving and who are you solving it for?
It's really hard to sell when people don't know who you are or what you do. It just makes it very difficult. And so we help companies build a brand. We help them get out there with their marketing content, their messaging, to make sure that what they are saying to the marketplace actually makes sense, that they're speaking about their customers' problems. I always tell my clients there's a reason why cable news is so popular, or at least it has been. It's because all they do is talk about problems. You don't turn into the news to find out what good happened that day. You find out what blew up. And that's what keeps people attention. So I help companies talk about the problem that they solve and make sure that they get their target audience's attention, really build their brand, become well known out there, both corporately and personally, especially with startups. The CEO, the founder, is just as important from a brand perspective as the actual logo, because people know what the logo is.
Yeah, and by the way, I totally agree with you. I'm doing a podcast for all these years, and I'm sure you've done the same, is if somebody starts saying, here's what I do, here's my solution, here's the technology, and we can all fall in love with our tools, right? And the problem is our listeners, our potential customers, do not connect our solution to their problem. And that is such a big issue. And we all just make the assumption that I sell a transportation management system, so all these shippers and all these 3PLs should know that it's for them. But they don't necessarily know
They
that.
don't. In fact, a lot of your target audience don't even know what the problem is.
Right.
So a lot of times you have to remind them of what the problem is and what's costing them, what it's keeping them from, and how your solution uniquely solves that problem so they can get where they want to go.
Right. And by the way, our politicians are masterful at this.
Well,
they are always looking for a crisis so they can get resources directed to it, and that's both parties do it.
They are masterful until they lose, and then what do? They spend time thinking about what? They think about their messaging. And why did our message not resonate?
Right.
It's usually because they're not talking about the right problems. If you're talking about problems that your people don't care about, then it's gonna lose. It's gonna get lost in translation.
So, Beta Consulting Group works with who?
Primarily transportation companies, tech companies, service providers. People who service brokers and carriers are our primary audience, and then brokers and carriers themselves are our secondary audience. Anybody in transportation who's really trying to grow and do that to accelerate the process. In fact, one of the things that we really like to help out with is getting customers on your side to help you sell. Your customers will always sell your product or service better than you. No offense, that's just the case. So how can you get your customers in a position to talk to your prospects and to talk about your service and why they like using it? That's one of the tactics that we help companies with, really helping them reimagine sales and marketing just outside of cold calling and emailing, which are still good things. We add a lot to that.
Well, when you do the cold calling and emailing, what you're hoping to do is bring them to a compelling reason to reach out and talk to you.
And it certainly helps if they've heard of you before you do that.
Right,
It really helps.
So that's one of your jobs. Let's talk about your other job at Broker Carrier Summit. So we're at a conference, a big conference, a fantastic conference.
Yes.
But you guys have another conference that's going on, and it's the Broker Carrier Summit, sometimes just BCS, and that is in April in Indianapolis.
That's correct. Our home base is where it all started 2 years ago when Dan Lindsay had this vision for bringing brokers and carriers together to not only talk about the problems in the industry, but also to find each other. Owner-operators who are dependent upon load boards only, they're working with brokers that they don't know. They don't know if they're credible. They don't know if they're going to get paid on time. They're really trusting them to do that. And the brokers don't know if this carrier is actually going to show up and going to answer a phone call on a check call and those types of things. By bringing them together, we're not only able to talk about the real problems in the industry, what do brokers not like about carriers and vice versa, and why why? How can we fix that? But more importantly, they're able to find each other, sit together over a meal, talk to each other, learn about each other's business, and create that trust. And we've had so many cases, Joe, it's amazing, where carriers will say, I've been tendered loads already from the brokers at the summit. Literally, they got loads from the brokers. And so that's what it's all about. At the Broker Carrier Summit, we're all about elevating brands and making deals happen where deals get done.
And I've said this lately on my podcast, and I know it's true, and I know you know it's true. It's a little difficult time. We're hopefully coming off the bottom of this freight recession. But if you're a broker, you're looking and saying, the margin's not what it should be. And most brokers are feeling a little bit of that pain. And then they're tendering loads to carriers who say, this is not enough money. And they don't get to see the top line. And so they're saying that broker is keeping all that money. So when there's not enough money to go around between the broker or the carrier, but there's only one party who sees it as, I'm being ripped off by those guys. And usually, so I get a lot of phone calls, I suspect you do too, from carriers who say, I just want good shipper freight. And what they're really saying is, I don't want to work with brokers. And what I tell them is, find better brokers.
Yeah, the truth is, if you want to go from an ideal utopia, it would be great for carriers to work directly with shippers. But unless you have 200 trucks, you can't get a seat at the table with most shippers, right? So your broker becomes your outsourced sales arm to really help you keep your trucks moving. And that's why you need good partners, people who will treat you well, who are like-minded, who are going to take care of you, who really value what you do and want you to not only stay in business, but grow. And again, that's what we're doing at the Broker Carrier Summit, is bring those parties together to find each other so they can do that.
Yeah. And by the way, I just talked to our mutual friend, Kevin Hill, on my podcast, and I think he said 21% of all freight is brokered right now. And at one time it was 15%, and I think during COVID it maybe got up to 25%. But basically, there was a lot of, including me, I believed as technology became better and better, we would have less need for freight brokers. But what we found is the very best freight brokers are investing in technology and customer success, and they are winning over a larger percent of the total freight.
Yeah. Well, it's actually the outsourced model. You have shippers. What are they good at? They're good at making a product, and they're good at selling that product. They're probably not good at the transportation side of it. And in business, anything that you're not good at, it's a good idea to outsource it to somebody who that's all they do all day. And I think shippers are starting to realize that it is valuable to have quality brokers that can help them move their freight and just handle all the logistics of that transportation move, because that's not their specialty. And and I think that this is my prediction, Joe. I'll just say this. I think in 10 to 15 years, brokerages are really just going to be technology companies that have people handling exceptions or special type of loads. It's going to be a lot of technology. So you're right. The best ones are investing in technology. It's making it more attractive for shippers because they'll be able to get their loads automated, and a lot of stuff's going to move. It's just like the airlines. The airlines have automated everything now. You can book a flight now and change a flight. You don't have to talk to a human ever. And it works pretty well. I think we're on the path to move in that direction, where brokerages are kind of the middleman. They're going to be technology-based companies that will have people helping with customer service exceptions.
Well, I would not be surprised if we have consolidation in this broker space as shippers demand the technology that's going to keep their information safe. Freight fraud's been a problem, and the first cousin of freight fraud is cybersecurity. I think the whole industry is trying to upgrade, and it's going to be interesting to see how the mom and pop brokers manage that transition.
Yeah, I think COVID, because everything really went online, before COVID, you still had brokers that had on-premise technology, which means it's harder to get into. Right now that everything is more web-based and those types of things, I think it opened a door to a problem that wasn't as bad, or maybe wasn't as known to be as bad.
Well, it's just more business is digital now. So I always say when somebody says, how do I avoid freight fraud? And it's not a great answer, but you don't get defrauded by the guy you've been working with for 10 years. You get defrauded by somebody who doesn't have a website and only wants to talk to you by text.
That's right. And as things become more digital, you really create more doors for bad players to come in. That's why the new technologies out there, the highways, the verified carriers, all those different platforms are going to be really valuable to help identify who the bad actors are as much as possible.
Well, let's wrap this bad boy up. So one more time, what does Beta Consulting Group do, and then what do you guys do over at the Broker Carrier Summit?
Beta Consulting Group, we help you become known and trusted so that you can build business faster, you can accelerate your sales cycle, cool. We also do events and a few other things too, so we have a lot of fun. I like to dabble in a lot of things. The Broker Carrier Summit, that's where brands are elevated and deals get done.
And that's in Indianapolis.
That's correct. April 28th through May 2. We call it Summit Week. There's a golf tournament to kick it off. There's a breakfast.
I'm hoping to get there this time. I've been trying to get there, but it's always kind of was next to another event, and I love it that it's in the Midwest.
Yeah, we try to keep it centrally located so it's easy for people to get to it as much as possible.
Any event I can drive to feels good to me.
It's unique because the conversations there are probably more authentic and more, I think, valuable than most conferences because it's about working together as a broker and carrier and getting deals done. So it's been a blast to be part of that. It's been really great seeing these small carriers and brokers get their brands elevated, their business grows and become more stable. So it's a joy.
Trey, it's been a pleasure. Enjoy your time at Manifest.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks for taking the time, pal.
Yeah.